Welcome back to Good Revenue. Today, we're going to talk about messaging. Messaging shapes customer perception of value and it affects willingness to pay. So, we're going to explore the science behind how effective messaging shapes customer perceptions and what you can do to build more effective messaging strategies. Strong brands don't just sell products, they command price premiums and they demonstrate remarkable resilience against market pressures. Messaging is the intentional design of communications to elicit, drive, shape, reinforce, or change behavior. It's distinct from strategy, positioning, or copywriting. Great messaging is subtle, customer-centric, and it is influential in affecting behavior. That's why it's an important and, in my view, underrated lever when it comes to monetization and the design of successful business models. We're going to go through some peer-reviewed research that supports these conclusions. First of all, a seminal 2014 study found that value-based selling with messages focused on specific value creation rather than just product features or pricing increases willingness to pay, particularly for new customers. This study also found that effective messaging helps companies differentiate from competitors and it justifies premium pricing. The reason is that value-driven communication, when accurate, is effective in enhancing customer willingness to pay by focusing on meeting customer needs rather than just listing product attributes. In B2B, for value-based pricing strategies to succeed, organizations have to excel at communicating strong value propositions. This is from research in 2015. In consumer markets, another example is that limited quantity messages are actually more effective in motivating buying decisions than time-limited messages. This influence is particularly powerful for symbolic brands. The reason is that it engages psychological triggers like exclusivity and urgency. That's from a 2011 study. The research underscores a crucial insight. Effective messaging doesn't just describe value, it creates and amplifies it through strategic communication that resonates with customer psychology. When organizations master messaging, they unlock significant pricing power and sustainable competitive advantages. So why are we talking about this today? One of the problems that I see is that many organizations focus on features and facts rather than emotions. These organizations tend to hire a copywriter to just make the words sound nice, and they're not doing the actual work of messaging, which we're going to get into in a minute. Now, that might be because emotions tend to be considered a little lightweight and maybe aren't serious enough for a conversation in a business. But if that's the attitude in your organization, you're missing a huge opportunity. Here's why. Before you craft a message, you have to understand what your core audience values if you want to align with them. Effective messaging dives deeper into human behavior, values, and psychology, and it makes people feel understood. As humans, we're just not as rational as we'd like to think we are. Our behavior is shaped by multiple factors. First, our values and attitudes, which are interconnected, according to research from 2020, social and personal norms from 1991, a sense of identity, that's from 2010, and circumstances and the environment from 2005. Our brains process emotions faster than rational thoughts, and this has a profound effect on our decision-making and our behavior. According to research from 1996, we create emotional bookmarks or somatic markers that help us make quick decisions. That's from 1994. We favor information that confirms our existing beliefs from 1990. We're more sensitive to potential losses than we are to equivalent gains. That's from Kahneman and Tversky in 1979. And we make judgments based on emotional reactions rather than careful analysis from a 2007 paper. This emotional influence manifests across multiple domains. In politics, a landmark 2006 study showed that changing music or images in television ads with the same text can actually trigger different emotions. Politically aware citizens are actually more easily swayed by emotions than less informed citizens. And surprisingly, positive enthusiasm ads are actually more polarizing than negative ones. In finance, Emotions significantly affect the investment decisions that are made. Research participants without access to the emotional processing portions of their brains actually made better financial choices than the control population in a 2005 study. In charitable giving, emotional stories that include identifiable victims drive more donations than statistics in a 2007 study. And finally, in the consumer setting, emotional responses to ads are actually a better predictor of behavior than participants' self-reported responses from 2015. I hope that this research is helpful in painting a picture of how emotions help us make decisions. Next, let's get into the details and discuss what you need to do to build effective messaging based on the science about the power of emotions in our decision-making process. First, let's talk about framing. Framing shapes how audiences perceive and process information. It's not just about presenting information, it's about providing the mental scaffolding through which people interpret the information that you're sharing. Framing shapes how we see information and it guides our thinking on an issue. As defined in a 2009 paper, frames are interpretive storylines that set a specific train of thought into motion, communicating why an issue might be a problem, who or what might be responsible for it, and what should be done about it. The key dimensions to keep in mind when it comes to framing are situational framing, which is how you present the context, attribute framing, which features or characteristics you choose to emphasize, choice framing, how you present options and decisions, action framing, how you describe required steps or behavior, issue framing, how you define problems and solutions, and responsibility framing, how you attribute cause and effect. The research behind this is plentiful. In their 1979 research, Kahneman and Tversky determined that perception is reference dependent. Their research showed that identical outcomes presented differently led to dramatically different decisions. In a 2011 study, when crime was described using beast metaphors, people preferred enforcement measures. When crime was described as a virus, respondents preferred prevention and social reform as the solution. In a 2014 study, frame alignment with organizational values was found to increase innovation adoption and strategic change success. In another study from 2014, products highlighting human benefits received higher willingness to pay compared to environmental or animal welfare benefits. People will literally pay more for benefits for other humans versus the environment or animal rights. Here's the practical application of this process. First, you need to identify the existing frames in your market or your target audience. Second, you want to analyze frame effectiveness for that audience. Third, you should test different types of frames to see which is more successful in achieving the desired outcome. Fourth, you want to align frames with the values that your audience holds. And fifth, you need to maintain a consistent frame across touch points of communication. Next, let's talk about laddering and value chain development. Laddering connects product features to deeper emotional benefits, and it's based on means-end theory, which was developed in 19. It reveals the hidden connections between product features and core human values. This technique helps craft messages that resonate at both rational and emotional levels. That's what makes it so powerful. Volvo was the subject of a study in 2003 that brings this to life. The product attribute in question was an advanced braking system. The functional benefit of the braking system was shorter stopping distance. The emotional payoff for the audience was peace of mind, and the core value that the audience held was family security. You can see how the product feature laddered up to the core value held by the customer. Research shows successful laddering techniques require in-depth customer interviews, systematic analysis of response patterns, validation of assumed value chains, and regular updating of insights. This is all going to sound familiar if you've heard us before. We constantly talk about the power and importance of sustained, deep customer insights. Third, let's talk about narrative and storytelling. Stories don't just engage us, they actually transform how information is processed, remembered, and acted upon. Effective narrative messaging creates a mental simulation that audiences experience as reality. Narratives are more persuasive and memorable than factual statements, boosting willingness to pay and positive brand associations, according to a 2013 study. Research explains why stories are so powerful. First, cognitive processing. Stories activate multiple regions of the brain, enhance learning, and reduce counter arguments. Research shows that transported readers are less inclined to question the claims of a story, according to research from 2000. Second, emotional engagement. Through character identification, stories drive empathy and emotional investment. Stories literally increase the value of objects. In a 2012 study, objects sold on eBay with stories attached sold for higher prices than the same objects did without a story. Third, memory and recall. Stories enhance memory pathways and recall, achieving much better retention rates than facts alone, according to a study from 1969. Fourth, coherence and understanding. Narratives help organize complex information, adding comprehension with their sequential causal structure. This is from research from 2010. And fifth, persuasion and attitude change. Stories can surpass defensive processing, offering self-discovered realizations and modeling behavior change. Successful campaigns like the Truth Anti-Smoking campaign were impactful because they had authentic stories. This is from a study in 2005. Recognizing the intricate dance between emotion and reason helps us be more effective in influencing behavior and decision-making. Here are a few of the best practices to keep in mind when you're crafting a narrative. First, start with conflict or tension. Second, create relatable characters. Third, build emotional connections. Fourth, provide clear resolution. Fifth, link to audience values. Sixth, include specific details. And seventh, maintain authenticity. Our fourth element is language choice. Language shapes reality. It's not just what you say, but how you say it that really determines the effect of your words. Research shows that language affects everything from perception to purchase decisions. So here are the key dimensions to keep in mind when it comes to using language to build a strong messaging framework. First, clarity and comprehension. Simpler language is perceived as more credible and intelligent and trustworthy. Simpler language is perceived as more credible, intelligent, and trustworthy, according to research from 2006. You should avoid industry jargon. It's actually counterproductive and it doesn't make you sound like an expert. Use concrete language and maintain consistent terminology. Second, emotional resonance. Emotional language activation in the brain precedes rational processing, as we discussed earlier. You should choose emotionally powerful words, balance positive and negative framing, and use sensory language. Third, memorability. Rhetorical devices improve message recall by 40%, according to a 2003 study. This means that you should create distinctive phrases, use rhythm and repetition, and employ vivid metaphors. Fourth, persuasive power. Indirect requests are actually more persuasive than direct approaches, from research in 2011. So use inclusive language, employ an active voice, and balance directness with subtlety in your communications. Fifth, cultural relevance. Cultural congruence in messaging increases the persuasiveness of the messaging, according to a study from 2005. You should respect cultural nuances, adapt to local contexts, and consider international implications in your language choices. The fifth element to keep in mind is message testing and refinement. Effective message testing goes way beyond A/B tests, and it's about understanding behavioral impact. You should test messages for comprehension, distinctiveness, persuasiveness, and behavior change, not just engagement metrics. Research on COVID-19 public health messaging brings this to life. A 2021 study showed that messages emphasizing personal responsibility and the protection of vulnerable groups was more effective in encouraging preventive behaviors than messages that just focused on individual risk. Great messaging is tested and refined over time. It's not a one and done, which is another area in which I think a lot of organizations go wrong. They do messaging once and they assume that it's fine. They might make a change because they see something that a competitor is doing, but instead of waiting for the competition to beat you to the punch, it's better to stay ahead of it by building a comprehensive testing framework for messaging. Here are the components. First, comprehension testing. At its core, comprehension testing is about evaluating how clearly a message is communicated. This includes understanding the clarity of the message, how well key points are retained by the audience, and assessing the risk of misinterpretation. Next, the emotional impact of the message. This dimension analyzes immediate reactions and sustained feelings towards the content, as well as uncovering any unconscious associations that may influence perception. Next, we consider behavioral intent. This dimension looks at the stated intentions of our audience, their revealed preferences, and the triggers that prompted them to take action. Fourth, the real-world effect of our message. This dimension focuses on actual behavior change, the business outcomes resulting from message dissemination, and any unintended effects our message might cause. If you integrate these four dimensions, comprehension, emotional impact, behavioral intent, and real-world impact, into your testing framework, you'll be able to develop a holistic understanding of how your message is actually performing. The final element that I wanted to discuss that I think is really important in a messaging strategy is multisensory message delivery. If you've done all of this work and you're still with me, go the extra mile and think about how your messages will be delivered. Message delivery has to engage multiple senses if you want maximum impact. Research shows that multisensory communications create stronger, more lasting impressions. Multisensory learning allows words like onion to live in more than one place in the brain. And what this means is that these words are actually distributed across entire networks. If one node decays, another active node is still available, and therefore the message has been retained longer. Here are the dimensions to keep in mind when it comes to delivery. First of all, multi-channel integration. Integrated multi-channel delivery increases the impact of a message by 40%, according to research from 2015. So you need to think about channel selection, timing coordination, and message consistency. Next, vocal elements. Vocal cues convey emotion with 60% more accuracy than facial expressions, according to research from 2016. This explains why podcasts and radio ads can be so powerful. They bypass our visual defenses and they connect directly with our emotions. So keep in mind pitch variation, pace modulation, and strategic pauses. Third, nonverbal communication. Gestures improve message recall by 33%, according to research from 2014. Nonverbal cues can actually communicate more than words. Voice, tone, body language, and gestures all matter. So keep in mind gesture coordination, facial expressions, and your body positioning when delivering a message in person. Fourth, environmental factors. Environmental congruence increases message acceptance, according to research from 2008. Physical settings, temporal context, and the social atmosphere all matter. We've gone through a ton of information, and I hope that this has been helpful to you. To recap, here's what it takes to craft a comprehensive messaging strategy. First and foremost, it's all about having a customer-centric approach. You have to ground messages in deep emotional insights, focus on audience feelings, not just what you say, and commit to ongoing and consistent customer insights programs if you really want to understand and shape customer value and willingness to pay. Second, framing. Actively frame or reframe issues, topics, and products to influence behavior change. Recognize that framing significantly affects message comprehension and persuasiveness. Third, laddering and value chain development. Build clear value chains, linking product attributes to core customer values. Fourth, narratives. Tell stories for maximal emotional resonance. Use narratives to enhance message comprehension, credibility, and recall. Fifth, language choice. When possible, employ indirect language, which can be more powerful than direct language. Avoid jargon Use simple, consistent language to build trust and credibility. Sixth, message testing and refinement. Proactively test messages over time for comprehension and behavior change, not just engagement. Continuously refining messaging makes your messages more effective. Seventh, multisensory delivery. Commit to a multisensory approach to change audience perception and behavior. Prioritize consistency across channels to elevate message effectiveness. Eighth, ongoing insights. Continuously and systematically look for customer insights because things change, and these days they change faster than ever. So if you want to keep that messaging impactful and on target, it's important to stay really close to your customer base and your target audiences. Effective messaging is a powerful tool that combines what you say, how you say it, and how your audience interprets it. Craft messages that resonate by addressing core values and emotional needs. Make your audiences feel seen and understood. Remember that you move people through their values, not yours. Thanks so much for listening to Good Revenue. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to the show, give us a rating, or leave us a review. It helps other listeners find us, and we really appreciate your support. You can also catch full videos and highlights on our YouTube channel.